Buckeye Lounge, we run this game. Shrockstar Sean, remember the name. TG's lurking, Wolverine's fear. Scarlet and gray, make it loud and clear. TG and Sean, bringing that smoke. They stand in the paint, that ain't no joke. Tune in, turn up, let the show begin. The Buckeye Lounge, straight fire within. Buckeye Lounge, we run this game. Shrockstar Sean, remember the name. TG's lurking, Wolverine's fear. Scarlet and gray, make it loud and clear.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Buckeye fans of all ages, the Ohio podcast proudly brings to you the Buckeye Lounge. I'm your host, the Shrockstar Sean Schrock, and with me, my partner in crime, the Wolverine Slayer herself, TG. And tonight, we have not one, but two national champions with us. We got Mr. Ben Hartsock, and of course, our friend from before, who always comes on our show every time we ask him, Mr. Tim Anderson. How are you guys doing tonight?
Any day I get to hang with Tim Anderson's a good day in my book. I'm fired up. Highlight of my day so far.
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
TG, how are you?
I'm fine. Other than just having an intense day, I'm not gonna lie, fighting with a bunch of insects all in my house. I'm having a good day.
Well, guys, thanks for coming on tonight. Kind of want to get, if you guys had the chance to talk to this year's team, what kind of advice would you give to them, since they're in the position that you guys were in once upon a time, or they're defending national champions? What would each of you say to them if you had the chance?
Take it, Timmy.
Honestly, I would probably just say, this is probably maybe a little cliche. Last year is last year. This is a new year. This is a new team. You've got new coaches, new coordinators, new players, new starters. You are the defending champs, but you're your own team, and just focus, week by week. What you did last year is not going to factor into anything you do in the upcoming season. You got to show up to camp. You got to be ready to go. You got to stay healthy. You got to do all those little things right. And just focus on this year and kind of ignore what happened in the past.
I heard a coach once say, climbing the mountain is passion, defending the mountain is fatigue. And that always stuck with me, because the year we climbed the mountain, the year we won the title in 2002, the expectations weren't there. And so it's every day was like, yeah, all right, let's climb another rung. Let's go up another notch, up another step. But that next year, it's human nature to feel the weight of, well, we did it last year. We returned the majority of that team that won in 2002 back. We lost key guys, but we certainly had the majority of talent coming back for that next season. And I don't know, Tim, did you remember feeling the pressure? You're 20, whatever. We were young 20, so a lot of it is we're naive and ignorant to how big it is. But I don't remember feeling pressure, but I did remember realizing it felt different than the year prior when nobody expected us to be there.
Yeah, I agree with the pressure point. I think there was more attention.
Yeah.
I remember doing an interview with Craig, because he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated going into the season. And that was like the fall camp at our media day or something like that. Sorry, I got a.
It's fine. It's fine. My dog does it too.
She's horrible. But there was certainly a lot more. I think as much as we as players maybe tried to ignore it, there was just a lot more of attention on us. More media was around, more national media was around. I remember seeing people that I always saw on TV, like on ESPN and stuff, like at practices and stuff, and thinking like, oh man, I've got like a so-and-so's here. So I think it does creep in a little bit. I will be honest with you. It's hard to kind of anticipate what these guys are dealing with, because one thing that fortunately Ben and I didn't have to deal with was, the communication, the social media, and those things, like where it's like almost always in your face. I mean, yeah, we had cell phones, but I mean, shoot, you had to hit the number 5 3 times just to get to the letter.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid you miss it and you got to start back over. I mean, that's what it was 20 years ago. So yeah, I think there's going to be pressure on them, especially for those guys that are coming back, guys that were starters. The expectation is going to be higher, just because I think that the media, the attention is going to be greater than it was last year, when it wasn't maybe necessarily as expected. Because certainly, I don't know if Ben, do you remember, we weren't even picked to win the Big Ten that year, and I don't
the year we won it. Yeah, I heard Coach Tress talk about that. They weren't really thinking that 02 team was the team. They thought that by the time our class, we had a big class that was coming up, that would have been seniors the year we defended. But yeah, I've heard Coach say that 02 team didn't have the same expectations, but each week we continued to survive and get more and more national attention. So we snuck up on people.
Yeah, and I think we were we were only 7-5, 8-4, something like that
the year prior. Yeah, and lost the Outback Bowl to South Carolina. I mean,
yeah, we're way smarter than we've been, but I mean, it wasn't like we were close the year before, and like we had all these guys coming back.
Yeah. So the thing though, that comparing our era to this, that it's an impossible task, Tim, you hit it on the head, is the world is so connected now that it was a big deal in the early 2000s. College football was massive, but I had this conversation today. I was at Falcons practice. I live here in Georgia, and so I went to Falcons practice, and I talked to some former Georgia guys, and we were just reminiscing about our era. That, Timmy, did we ever talk about the SEC when I don't remember ever discussing. Alabama was kind of in the desert during that era, and Georgia was good during that time. They had David Pollock and David Green. So they had guys, but the world was just more disconnected. And so there's two things today. The pressure and the eyeballs are as big as they've ever been, and only getting bigger. And think about it this way. Many Ohio State fans, not only do they know Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Day and the main players, they know the offensive coordinator. They know the offensive line coach. They know the position coaches. They know support staff. They know general managers in a way that not many people even knew who the athletic director was when Timmy and I played. And so the expectation, or the fandom, is so voracious in their appetite. That means there's more people, more pressure. And then the second aspect is these guys now have to live up to the pressure of a lot of these guys, $1 million plus contracts. Not only defending a national championship is a massive deal. Defending a national championship while also living up to a $1 million plus contract is an even bigger deal. And then the pressure of just the game being more consumed and on a bigger platform, it's orders of magnitude bigger than when Timmy and I went through it.
Well, you know why we didn't hear about those teams? They weren't in the dominant conference back then, which doesn't exist anymore. How many people out there remember the Big East?
Yeah. That's when Miami was running roughshod. They were in the Big East. That's right.
You guys were more protected back then, more insulated. Now these players, I mean, it's like anybody can reach out and, talk to them or touch them. You couldn't do that in your era.
I agree.
Yeah, insulated, but this is the tug of war of the modern athlete. Is every one of these guys are massive brands. Mm-hmm. I mean, and so every coach would prefer every player to live in a dark room and just watch tape. If you're going to do anything, maybe play some video games. But these guys are businesses, so they're meeting with business teams. They're meeting with their marketing rep. They're meeting with their agent at various levels. Cade Stover, the farm Gronk, right? He's me 20 years. I'm him 20 years prior, 25 years prior. and he think about it. He made, I don't know what he made, hundreds of thousands for sure as a farm kid. Timmy grew up in Clyde, Ohio, was a state wrestling. Like he could have built a nice brand as a player. And so but anytime you're chasing your business, the business of Caleb Downs, the business of Quinshon Judkins last year, you are not chasing the business of Ohio State team football. And people are having to navigate that. Coaches are having to navigate that balancing act of, I wish you were doing a little more film study and a little less of your brand ambassadorship.
Yeah. Okay. A friend of ours on this show, Andre. Let me see if I can find his question. Yeah, it's right here. He says, "How does it feel to beat Miami after all these years? Like now that you guys are older and these years have passed, how does it feel to beat them?"
You go, Timmy.
Good. I mean, and they were, I guess, for the people that were around back then. I mean, they were essentially the I guess the Alabama of that era. I mean, they were, unbeatable. I mean, that game was supposed to be over with by halftime. I mean, it was just like they just
13-point underdogs in the championship game. 13-point underdogs,
and I think it's
a massive number.
And I think it started out a lot bigger than that, actually. Like right when, because obviously we didn't have the conference championship games and all that stuff like they do now. But I mean, don't forget, we finished the season back then, tail end of November. And then you played the game like 5 weeks later or whatever. So, but I think initially when that first broke, I want to say it was like in the 20s or something. And then it like dwindled down. I think when people were like, all right, well, they must be pretty good because they have won all their games. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they just didn't like beat teams. I mean, they destroyed teams. We had a lot of games that year that were close games, overtime games we had to win in the fourth quarter. And I mean, they were blowing teams out. Their games were over. I mean, their starters were coming out of games in the third quarter. Yeah. Like they were just dominating teams. So the fact that we went in and we were able to beat them, I think it shows what our team really was and how good we really were as a group. Yeah. Even though we didn't have we had obviously some superstars, but not like they did, obviously.
That Miami dynasty was it was the peak of the Miami dynasty. The 01 team, if you look through all-time talent groupings of talent, that 01 team that won the national championship for the Hurricanes was some of the most incredible consolidation of talent. And then the 02 team was as close. They went undefeated in 01 and were undefeated all the way. They were riding a 20 whatever game, maybe even 30 game going back 2 seasons prior winning streak until they faced us. And honestly, the two things that I talk about when you talk about the era, the chapter of history that we got to be a part of, we accomplished 2 things. We ended the Hurricane dynasty and we tipped the axis of power in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry back in the right direction. Remember, Timmy and I were recruited by John Cooper, and his 2-10 record is why he wasn't the coach anymore. But we got things started that was the 20-year run that we're now on the opposite side of right now. Like, so whichever team, hopefully it's this team, tips that balance of power back in the Michigan rivalry, they will absolutely have the same feeling. I didn't win 4 pairs of gold pants. I only won 2, but those 2 represented that balance of power tipping back to Ohio State's favor that went on for the next 20 plus years until recent history. So toppling that Miami dynasty and then tipping the balance of power back to the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry.
Because that 01 game was the game where, Tressel promised when he made the promise in the gymnasium, when he got hired, he said, Buckeye Nation be proud in Ann Arbor, and how many ever days it was. And
proud of our young men in the classroom, in the community, and 310 days in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was at that game, guys. Timmy, did you go? Well, I think a lot of us went. Oh, man, there was a bunch of us there during that introduction. I'll never forget the chill bumps of the coach putting his name out there like that, or putting all of us. He was writing a check that we had to cash later that year. It was intense.
Well, let's not forget that was the first game Craig Krenzel ever started too. So, I mean, recruiting wasn't as big back then as it is now. So a lot of us fans, we didn't know who Craig Krenzel was. Mm-hmm. And, all of a sudden he's the starter of that game. We're like, oh, no. And
it's
he
crazy.
goes up there and you got kicked
he was kind of like the Cardell Jones, like, because he was our third string quarterback that year. Scotty McMullen was our backup quarterback behind Belisari.
Belisari and
Craig was our third string quarterback that whole year.
So why didn't McMullen start the Michigan game? Because it was Belisari got in trouble that led to him not playing in that Michigan game. He had off-field issues.
Well, you're smarter than me and have a better memory than me, Ben. But I want to say I think Scotty started whoever we played the week before Michigan.
Might have been Illinois. We'd have to go back to the way.
Yeah, I think it was actually Illinois. But I think Scotty started that game. But I only think he played maybe a few series. And then I think he wasn't doing well. And then I think they put Craig in. And
that might be right. It's funny how, it's funny as players, maybe you guys hosting the show have better. A lot of times players don't have the clear memories because we only have I just remember being in Ann Arbor. I remember our little blinders, whereas the fans live. I've had so many fans come back and remember specific details of games that are 20, 25 years ago. And I'm like, yeah. And I kind of remember the hotel or the locker room, but I don't necessarily remember all that stuff. So it's wild that way.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that too is, like when Ben was on the field defensively, we were on the sidelines going over stuff, adjustments, what they were doing, all of those types of things. And I'm assuming offensively, they did the same thing when we were. So as players, we're really not watching the game a whole lot, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's actually pretty great to hear. And I actually do love seeing perspectives on different angles. Our friend Tyler, guys, if you got any questions, throw it down in the chat below. Our friend Tyler asked a question. What are Ben and Tim's biggest questions entering training camp this year that they wanted answered?
I'll go first on this. To me, the biggest question is Brian Hartline calling offensive plays for the first time. We know about the talent. We obviously wonder what Julian Sayin is going to look like as the quarterback, but the incredible talent at wide receiver and Claire, the Purdue transfer at tight end. So I'm excited to see Peoples be a main bell cow running back. So we've got talent at all the main skill positions, but we've got a new quarterback. But Brian Hartline, who has tremendous respect because of the talent he's developed. I mean, the wide receiver talent, but I don't care how many games you've been on the sideline or even been on the communications making suggestions about what to call on third down or how to set up a drive in the first quarter that can be complementary in the third and fourth. Until you finally are the one with the responsibility to do that, you don't know. And honestly, I'm a little gun shy because of Kerry Combs' experience a couple years ago. Another extremely well-respected defensive coach, loved recruit guys, played their tails off for him, struggled when he was given the responsibility of calling the defenses. So I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic about Brian Hartline once he gets the chance to call the plays, but we don't know till we don't know.
Yeah, I think my biggest question going in, and it's a factor in the Hartline conversation, and this might sound cliche as a D lineman, but it's the play up front. It's Ohio State lost a lot of guys off of that offense and defensive line, so they're going to have a lot of new faces. A lot of new guys in there, and seeing how those guys play, how those guys react. And we'll have some really good players. I mean, those weren't just players. I mean, those were guys that went high in the draft. So they got a lot of starters that are going to be new up front. And I think if you talk to any true football fan that really understands the game, skill positions are great, receivers, DBs, tight ends, all of that. But ultimately, I think if you really talk to the people that know what they're talking about, it comes down to the trenches and who's going to win up front. If the offensive line and defensive lines win, odds are the team's going to win. And I think we've got some question marks as to how those guys are going to respond and they're going to play. And obviously, the better they play, that's going to help Hartline out offensively, and obviously, it's going to help the calls on defense as well.
Go ahead, Sean.
I was going to ask you guys had so many close games during that year, and you talk about Miami blowing so many people out. Do you think Miami was shocked in that game when you guys just wouldn't go away? Do you think they were kind of taken back because they hadn't had or seen that kind of, perseverance from a team or had that challenge all year? And here you guys are not going away. Then you guys, took the lead on them a couple times.
Timmy, when did it happen? I know when I remember when I said, because we as players, we all knew, even though there wasn't as much coverage as there is today, we all knew where what people expected of us, and so you think, well, we think we can, but you don't know till you don't know. For me, it was the first defensive play. Will Smith right around their tackle and puts Dorsey on the ground. I said, all right, we're fine. Because the whole story was big, slow Midwestern guys playing all this Miami speed. And then the first defensive play, I think it was first play of the game, if memory's correct.
It was.
Yeah, Will Smith goes right around their tackle and puts Dorsey on the ground. I said, all right, well, we can run with them. Because everybody knows how fast we are in comparison to Will Smith. May he rest in peace. But that was when game was on. And then as the game progressed, like Timmy said this earlier, Miami blew people out by 30, 40 points. They had never been in a rock fight. So as the game progressed and it continued to be nip and tuck, we knew that the strength, the advantage swung back to our favor. There's like, we played a dozen games this way. All we know is rock fight. That's trestle ball. So we knew once as the game continued to play out, this was not a situation that Miami had seen in a couple of seasons ultimately.
Yeah, and I agree. Because I was on the field for that play too, and it wasn't just Will. Will was the one that put him on the ground, but all four of us across the front were there. Like we were all in the backfield. And I remember, and I tell the story on a regular basis about that game. I remember at the end of that play when we turned to go back to the huddle, I remember looking at their linemen, kind of looking at each other, and it was almost like they realized at that time, like these guys might be a little bit different than what we've played all year. And I think the other thing too, and again, my memory is not the best, but I don't think there was, and maybe Ben can remember, I don't think there was ever really a point in that game where they kind of pulled ahead of us. In fact, I want to say we led like a good chunk of that game. Yeah. I want to say they had to come back and score at the end of regulation to even put that into overtime. If I'm remembering right.
Yeah, Winslow just became a problem. And he kind of put everybody on their back and fought back. And then when we got knocked back, that's when all the heroics of the drives and the third down conversion, the fourth down conversion to Jenkins, and then of course the Chris Gamble pass interference and all that. But yeah, you're remembering that right, Tim?
Yeah. So I mean, it was, and I think that might have been a factor for them that they weren't blowing us out. At the end of the third quarter, and again, I don't know what the scores were at the end of the quarters and stuff like that, but at no point did they look up at that scoreboard and they were up by 14 points and we had to try to come back or anything like that. And I think they were behind a good chunk of that game.
Oh, wow. Sean?
There's one play I want to ask you about, Ben, because many people don't know this, but you were involved in this play. It was the interception by Sean Taylor. Mm-hmm. You were actually, there's two plays that season that were big plays in Ohio State history in that season, and you were supposed to get the ball in both those plays. Holy Buckeye, and of course that pass that Sean Taylor just picks off and takes off and Maurice stripped them, got the ball back. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was, and there was a timeout before that play happened, and when I reflect upon my college years, I just remember how young and dumb we were. And I like Timmy, you and I never stood in the same huddle because offense, defense. But like I always told people, if you knew how goofy we were in the biggest moments in Ohio State history, you would be as do or die as the games were. You would be like shocked to know sometimes how goofy things were in the huddle. There was a Michigan game where Craig and I were jawing back and forth at each other. He called a play I misheard earlier in the game, and then he called it again, but he looked at me and called the play real, like, counter 43 right at me, and he signaled me by flipping me the bird one time. And this is in the Michigan game, and like a fourth down. He sends me in motion by flipping me the bird. So to that point, to that Sean Taylor, we're talking in the huddle before we snap it. I was like, oh, they're calling the bootleg. They're calling the flag, the corner route. I was like, Krenzel, you got to give me a touchdown. Like, buddy, not many people get an opportunity to score a touchdown in the national championship game. I don't score that many touchdowns anyhow. We don't hardly throw the ball that much. And if we do, we're throwing it to Jenkins or Gamble. So, I was given a hard time. And then sure enough, I run the play, I run the route, and you get the look. You see Craig work through his progression, and you see he's starting to throw sequence. Oh, he's throwing me the ball. I'm getting show bumps to even think about it. So they always, in these moments where like these things happen, time does slow down, and I see him lock eyes with me, and I see the ball like him start to throw. I was like, I have enough time to think I'm going to catch a touchdown in the flipping national championship game. This is the coolest thing in the world. And as the ball's in the air, I'm thinking, don't blow it, catch it, da-da-da. Like the hand of God, Sean Taylor's hand comes out of nowhere and rips the ball, and I fall down, and he's streaking down the sideline. And it's like, we all know this play that's now famous now because of what Clarett did, the heroics of him, is I have this unique position of like watching Sean Taylor streaking down the field a million miles away, and you can't really see what happened, but I heard that of the interception. You can hear the crowd, that breathe, that sigh, like that groan, and then all of a sudden you hear like the simmering, the boiling of the crowd of like, wait, what just happened? Wait, Clarett's got the ball. Like all of that happened, and I kind of wasn't really sure what happened, but all I know is it was our ball again, and we lived to play another down, and I was like, I can't. It's like these things happen so fast you can't even hardly have time to process it.
Oh wow! The fact that he gave you the signal while flipping you off is funny. That's funny.
You know, I'll tell you what. To add to that, I'm going to give a little props to the referees of that game. And remember, this is pre-replay.
Mm-hmm.
Like they called that live, and obviously we know the replay. Like it was called the way that it happened and the way it should have been. But in hindsight, like looking back, I'm kind of shocked that they gave Clarett the ball on that, and they didn't keep it on the defense, because that could have changed a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they both kind of came down with the ball, and kind of looking at it in today's perspective, the way that they call games and stuff. I mean, they would have left it with I guess the defense at that point, and just said, "Oh, we'll let replay figure it out." The fact that they made that live in the moment, I'm going to give the rest of that game a little shout out.
That is awesome. We've asked this question with Tim before, but we never asked it with you, Ben, which is, how did it feel? What was it like playing for Tressel?
Oh, it was incredible. Outside of, I say this often, outside of my family upbringing, the coaches and my experience as an Ohio State football player were the most formative of my life. Like I learned life lessons that I'm now passing to my kids that are high school age, one getting ready to go to college. And obviously I have incredible respect and admiration for Coach Tressel, but I have the same feeling for John Cooper. I actually texted him. He just had a birthday. I'm not sure what number it is, but I think it's in the upper 80s now. I think he might be 87, 88. And I didn't realize, I saw Coach Coop at a Michigan game a couple years ago, and I hadn't seen him for several years. And we were just talking college sports, and he was saying a lot of the things that working in the radio now, I have my principles in college athletics, and I didn't realize how much John Cooper, I was echoing what he taught me. It's kind of like as a kid, you don't know, when you're parenting a kid, you don't know how much is sinking in, but then every once in a while you'll hear your kid echo back something you've said to them a million times. I don't know that I caught it in the moments that John Cooper was teaching me about the importance of going to class and getting our education and doing the little things right. But I connected with him 20 years later and just in small talk. And I was like, oh my gosh, like a lot of the things I'm pounding the table for about college football, he had a very impactful and influential part of my development as a young man. So part of it. So I'm always very thankful for Jim Tressel. Obviously is an absolute icon and a legend. I think Coach Cooper gets some shade because of that Michigan record, but I know that every guy that played for him would go to bat for him. And I'm thankful to even had that opportunity to kind of see how big of an impact he had on me when I didn't realize it at the time.
Well, since you brought up John Cooper, and Tim, were you were there when John Cooper was there, right?
Yeah, Ben and I were
in class. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like being under Cooper? Because I don't think we ever asked that question with you, Tim. So for both of you, what was it like being under Cooper at the time?
I agree with Ben. I thought he was a great coach. I think back then, the whole Michigan record definitely hurt his reputation and whatnot. But I think in what I have seen in recent years, and this is probably going back maybe 10 to 15 years or so, I think people have kind of set that aside and looked at his overall resume as a head coach and kind of not putting the Michigan thing aside, but just incorporating everything. And I think he's started to kind of work his way back as one of the top coaches we've had. Because I think his winning percentage overall, he was like 86, 85, 86% or something like that, which that's pretty good to win 80+% of your games over a decade plus of coaching as a head coach.
First round draft picks. Think about Orlando Pace, Eddie George, Mike Vrabel, Luke Fickell. Hang on, TG.
No, it's fine. It's just that I told you guys all the time, I'll be fighting with these things and you can't see them on camera. I just be fighting with them. So if something knocks over there, it is what it is.
And I think his reputation, here's where I think John Cooper, unfortunately, history is not on his side. If you had the playoff system back then, we may have never heard of Jim Tressel.
Yeah.
I hate to say that because I love Jim too, but you may not, because he probably would have won two, maybe three national championships had they had the playoff system
that they have now.
The top four teams, let alone the one that we have now. So, because a couple of those years, they only had one loss. So, and if they would have gotten into a playoff, I think they would have run the table in the playoffs as well. And, that happens. Maybe he doesn't get fired. And obviously he wouldn't get fired. Jim Tressel doesn't ever come in. And obviously who knows what the path of Ohio State football would have been.
I don't think that Coach Cooper, it's a lot of this is just the timing in history. He wasn't an Ohio guy, and Tressel was. And the thing that I noticed the day that Coach Tressel came in was his knowledge of the state of Ohio history, the Ohio State history, the fact that he was on the staff under Earl Bruce, and he very much pivoted that team. Coach Coop was a CEO coach that had great assistants under him, and he kind of ran it like a business. And I think that Coach Cooper's misstep was Ohio State people need their coaches to be absolutely dialed on the state of Ohio. Now, Ryan Day's not an Ohio guy. Neither was Cooper, but Ryan Day, I think, understands, and that's why you see, despite all of his success, he's not shying away from the Michigan problem that we're dealing with right now. Like, that's a course correction that Ryan Day is learning from the history of Coach Cooper, that Coach Cooper was trying to, at the end, when we weren't getting on top of Michigan, he was trying to minimize that game and say, well, it's just one of many games, and Ohio State fans are never going to settle with that. And so those are the I haven't had the chance to talk to Coach about this, but I would bet that he would say that was maybe where I zigged, where I should have zagged.
Yeah.
I think the 96 and the 98 team, they both finished second. I think they both, like Tim said, each of them had one loss. I think they if they don't win it, they at least contend for it if they had the playoffs, back then.
Oh, absolutely. And Eric, what happened was me fighting with a gnat. That's what happened. That's what happened.
Yeah, put some apple cider vinegar out.
Oh no, I do that, and then I still, no matter how much I get rid of these things, some of them keep finding their way back. I don't know what it is. I'm finna get that freaking Virgo thing where I could just plug it up and they'll just go to the light switch and leave me alone, because I'm getting sick of fighting these things. Every time I'm doing this, I gotta do this or even keep the swatter next to me just because they keep flying next to my face. I hate that so much. But the other question Eric had is also, how many championships do you think Coop would have won in the 12-team playoff era?
Oh my gosh, it's hard to know. I was a kid during a large chunk of that, and I look back and I think of Tim and I were the kids sitting crisscross on the floor watching these games of the names that were so impactful to us. Of Orlando Pace and Ricky Dudley and Jerry Rudzinski. And these names that are, they're etched in my mind. And the funny thing about it, Tim, I don't know how you feel about this, is as we got older and started to be like, okay, we're now recruits and we're right on the cut. I was the only, I'll raise my hand and say, I'm the only Ohio State fan that was excited to see Andy Katzenmoyer declare early for the draft. Because if he'd have stayed for his senior year, I'd have had to face off against him and I wanted no part of it. So I'm the only guy that was like, when he opted to go to the NFL draft, I was like, oh gosh, I'm so glad. I wanted nothing to do with Andy Katzenmoyer. That was a tough transition. That when I stepped in and meeting Kenyon Rambo and meeting these guys in person that I've just months prior I was cheering for, was a bit of a paradigm shift.
I would have got to play with him, so I had no fear.
Now,
I would have been in front of him. So
now, Ben, did you ever have to block Tim in practice?
No, Tim played on the inside, and he didn't want any of my hands. He didn't want that smoke. So even if he had a stunt that would have come out to the tight end, he usually spit it down and be like, "Nah, I'm going to go and take myself out for this."
I would have tripped over my own foot or something on purpose. Listen, you gotta know your limitations, to who you can go against and who you can't. And I didn't want to have a film reel up in the team room of getting my butt whooped by Ben.
No, that's not true. You guys know that Tim won the state championship wrestling by 13 seconds. Like he walked onto the mat. He walked onto the mat. Tim, I've seen the VHS tape. We watched it in the dorms. I wanted to see it. And you put it in, and he walks on the mat and takes this other state championship level heavyweight and puts him on his back. And there's absolutely justified why no one wanted any piece. But hey, do you remember this? What was the name of the coach? He wasn't a long time. He was one of Tressel's assistants. He was kind of the military guy. Oh, gosh. He helped with the defense. Say it again.
The trucker.
Yes.
He used to drive long road trucks. He would sleep under his desk in the facilities.
He was kind of like an analyst before analyst. Anyhow, you talk about it. Timmy and I didn't square up. He was a 3 technique, a nose guard. I was an outside guy. But I would line up helmet to helmet with Darian Scott and Will Smith and the DNs, and that assistant would put a $5 bill and tear it in half, and he'd say, the guy that can drive the other guy off the ball can keep this $5 bill. And I just remember thinking, this is a terrible thing to put me and Will Smith across from each other. We could both hurt each other savagely, but that was what we did in practice, and we would just tee off against each other like 2 mountain rams up in the Alps, and probably gave ourselves massive concussions. But I don't think they're doing that anymore today.
Probably not.
We had one guy on that we interviewed, a former teammate of yours, James Cotton, and he talked about you, Ben, and going against you. And
he was a nightmare. He was the stuff of nightmares.
He's still a scary looking guy.
So you basically just answered Aaron's question, because he was going to ask who was the hardest player for you to block.
No, so when I was a freshman, James Cotton was a senior, and so there was that, like, as a freshman, you're wondering, am I good enough to make it here, right? I'm from Chillicothe, Tim's from Clyde. Even though we got recruited, there's an element of you walk in and you think, can we cut it? So James was that guy that I was like, man, I can't believe, because the guy is built like Debo. They called him Debo from Friday because he looks that guy and he's still yoked up.
yeah,
But the guy that was the problem was, Will Smith. Will Smith was an absolute nightmare.
No, that's fair. Hey, Eric wanted you guys to give like a good Ryan Miller story.
Ryan was gone. He wasn't on. He was graduated when we showed up. So I know of Ryan and watched him.
That's Eric's cousin. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
He was doing. I think he was doing radio at the time, wasn't he?
Radio and TV work at the time.
Yeah, I think he was doing that stuff.
I just remember being so handsome.
Yeah, he was a good looking. He still is a good looking guy.
He is.
Now, Ben, I got a question for you. What's scarier, having to go up against Will Smith or having to deal with a pageant mom?
Good insight. Yeah, my daughter competed in Miss Georgia's teen this year, and the pageant scene is, as a guy that grew up playing football and has no experience with pageanting, that was something special. But I would still take a pageant over Will Smith. He was a problem. Will Smith was a problem.
How did your daughter do, by the way?
She made the top 10 in the state of Georgia for Miss Georgia's teen in her first attempt. So
awesome.
Didn't get the crown, but
Awesome.
She won the local Miss Greater Atlanta's teen, but made it to the top 10 in the state level.
Well,
quite an experience.
Congrats.
Awesome.
Hey, Ben, Burks wants to know, are you friends with John Jensen?
Yeah.
Because Oh, okay. Yeah, because he said he invited you because he saw you with him and he invited you to the tailgate. So.
Yeah, John and I worked together on SiriusXM for a few years, and John and I have become actually good friends, and we consider ourselves kind of like Reagan and Gorbachev in the era of the Berlin Wall, that we were able to reach across some pretty tough circumstances and find a relationship together. Because he is as Michigan as there's ever been. I mean, he grew up in Michigan, and he's now the radio analyst for the team, and the dude loves and bleeds maize and blue. But over many years of him and I working together, and you got to remember when he and I started working together on the Big Ten channel on Sirius, the balance of power was in Ohio State. So I took plenty of shots at like, when are you guys going to fire Harbaugh? When are you guys going to figure out a way that you're never going to beat Ohio State? So he took plenty of pot shots, and now he's had the upper hand for a while. So I've been taking my slings and arrows as a result. He's enjoying his moment in the sunshine.
Really, I wonder how he feels about his program's little scandals.
I ask about those. I do ask about those quite often.
Yeah, because it
I
seems
got
like it's
one
getting worse for them.
Yeah, I know. Nobody wants to talk about it but Ohio State fans. Everybody else wants to move on.
Oh, trust me, that's not true. Bama fans talk about it because we know, because we talk with some of them too. Georgia fans, LSU fans, Tennessee fans, Illinois, Michigan State, Big 12, ACC, like all teams from all across, like even the G5, they all talk about it. Like everybody does.
Yeah.
Now, Ben, I got a question for you. We Tim was on the roundtable part of the Ohio podcast, another show on this channel, and he gave the best answer to this question. I want to hear what your answer is. What did you think when you saw Craig Krenzel throw the holy Buckeye pass to Michael Jenkins? What was in your mind when you saw him just heave it on 4th and 1?
Yeah,
Expression was.
I've got that. I think it's the Homage guys have a T-shirt that's got I think Holy Buckeyes trademarks, but they do have the play diagram on a T-shirt that my wife got for me for Christmas, and they've got the play called King Right 64 Y Strallo Swap, and I always, people when I wear it, they're like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Well, I'm this guy, the guy running the shallow cross. That's me." And I was the usual of my 30 whatever catches that my senior year, or that year, most of them were on that route. So in that moment, we started to know, by the time we played Purdue, we knew and we're starting to feel, hey, we got something special. We're starting to feel a little bit like a team of destiny, and we kept getting in these tight situations. I mean, gosh, but from Washington State to Cincinnati to that whole season, I think that was before the Illinois game, which went to overtime. But we knew whatever situation, we seemed to find a way out. And that was as bleak of a situation as any that entire season. But I will say, as soon as the play happens and I realized, okay, they saw this play, they covered me well, and I wasn't going to be an option, I was like, well, okay, now what? Most of the time we'd see Krenzel scramble. But then just like that, I see the ball, like my perspective wasn't from a TV screen or watching like what most people see. I watched the ball go over my head like this. I was like, oh, well, that's different. And I thought, well, okay, I guess this is how this thing's going to shake out. And the ball comes down. And what's crazy now here in the story after is how Jenkins and Gamble somehow swapped routes, and they weren't really supposed to. Like, I mean, divine inspiration or something. But I do know that if you watch that play, I'm the first one on the scene. I didn't catch many touchdowns, but I was always the first one on the scene to celebrate, because that was an awesome moment to be a part of that. It's one of those things about college sports that not every fan in college football knows that, but Ohio State fans are going to know that one forever.
Yeah. Now, before I get to this question for Tim, and check out this name. Like, I just happened to see this, and I'm like, oh my god, y'all are so funny. Is this Ryan Day's championship beer making these?
Must
be. Is it? And then he also has this one too, which I found so funny in the last show. I love it. Tim, Aaron had a question for you, which was, who was the harder to tackle between Jonathan Wells and Marcus Correa? Who's harder?
Maurice, to be honest. Jonathan was a big, powerful guy. At least in practice, though, he wouldn't like lower his shoulder to like run you over, where Maurice would. And it didn't matter. I mean, I was 300 plus pounds. It was pretty strong back in those days. And he didn't care. I mean, he was just going to bulldoze anybody. But I also say too, we didn't tackle. We did a lot of live, but we didn't do a ton of tackling where we were tackling those guys. You know that this is a name a lot not maybe a lot of people are going to know. You're the scariest dude to tackle that I ever played against at Ohio State that was on our team, Jamal Martin.
Oh gosh.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
That dude, if he was coming at you, it was, I'm just going to lay down and hope he trips on me. That's what I'm going to do, because he would knock you out.
That guy was vicious.
Dang.
Yeah,
Well,
probably not a lot of
basically,
Ohio State fans to know who he is.
Yeah.
Ezekiel, like basically Ezekiel Elliott before Ezekiel Elliott.
Well, he played fullback, so he didn't carry the ball a lot, but he was like what Tim is saying is he was a bulldozer running through the line of scrimmage. Now he's fast and some bulldozers slow, but my point is you had to make a very conscious decision that you were going to suffer. If you were going to bring him to the ground, you were going to pay a stiff penalty to do so. He was a good one.
And there was if you hit him, if you kind of lead with your face like a normal tackle, you're probably getting a concussion. You hit him with your shoulder, you're probably going to knock your shoulder out of joint or get a stinger or something. I mean, he was this. To be honest, he was the scariest dude to have to try to tackle.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, quietly an Ohio State guy that played probably 6 or 8 years in the NFL, and not many people know it. He didn't have a glamorous career, but the dude was a very strong football player in an era where the fullback was still very, very important.
Yeah.
I mean, that's back when Ohio State carried the fullback, though. I mean, they had Jeff Cothran. I mean, then Jameer Martin. I mean, that dude was big and he was strong. I wouldn't have wanted to tackle him. I don't blame you, Tim.
Yeah, nobody blames you at all. And Mika asks, what was the moment you knew you could play D1 ball, college ball?
Well, I'm interested in this for you, Timmy.
You know what? I'll be honest with everybody. It was probably was my third year in college. If you want me to be completely honest about it, because my freshman year, I was playing behind Mike Collins, who was a pretty good player, and Ryan Pickett, who ended up being a first rounder. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even touch the field. I got redshirted. And then the next year I got very limited reps and honestly was questioning that, man, do I really belong here? Am I really good enough to play at this level? And it was probably into that third year. Once I earned the starting job, which would have been, I guess, my sophomore year, that's when I think I was like, okay. And then we got the first few games under our belt. And I think, I also had the daunting task every day in practice for those 2 years as well, where I got my ass whooped by a guy named LaCharles Bentley. So questioning my ability, and if you don't know, anybody out there doesn't know who LaCharles Bentley is,
please Google him.
Arguably, Nick might arguably one of the best centers Ohio State's ever had. I would put him in that conversation. Let me say it that way. Mm-hmm. And he just destroyed me every single day. So for those first 2 years, not getting to play on Saturdays and then getting just manhandled all week in practice, I really did question, like, man, maybe I should be at a smaller school. And I did contemplate transferring. And thankfully, we didn't have the transfer rules like they do now, or I may have transferred if it was as easy as it is now. But then, I came back, would have been my sophomore year because I got redshirted, so it was my third year in college and earned a starting spot. And then after the first few games, I was playing pretty well, and that's when I'd say about 3 to 4 games into that my sophomore season is that first year Truss was the coach. That's when I kind of felt like, okay, I belong here. I can play at this level and play with these guys. The
difference between LaCharles and Mangold is they're both world-class centers. LaCharles was mean about it. He wanted to grind you into a dust, where Nick would knock you down and then help you up and laugh about how he did it. It was very different styles. But Tim, you bring up a good point that Tim was a multi-year developmental project. This is where one of my concerns about college athletics today is I don't know that Tim gets the same amount of runway that he got in the early 2000s to become an NFL player, an NFL draft pick. I mean, a guy of that caliber, it takes time to develop there. Now that the runway is so short, if you're not on the field first year, second year, those guys nowadays are shown the door. It's a different era. And so to answer the question for me is, it was my redshirt year. I redshirted as well. Just like you, Tim, you wonder, can we cut it? And it was on scout team, and I'm banging my head against James Cotton and Clinton Wayne and, oh gosh, I can't remember the ton of the name of the guys. Rodney Bailey, goodness gracious. And just scout team. Like Tim was saying, he didn't tackle Jonathan Wells a lot or Claret a lot because we didn't do a ton of one-on-one. You tackle the scout team running back. And so it was more of those guys. So I was taking care of the starters as a true freshman and doing okay, but trying to just figuring out what college ball was. And I remember, to me, this is something I talk to coaches, is the power of a coach's encouragement. It was Fred Puggage, our defensive coordinator, who came up in a goal line situation, and I was just doing my best to try to serve the defense. And Puggage was happy with how I performed against James Cotton. And he came up to me after practice. He goes, you're going to help us, young man. You're doing a good job. You're helping us. And, you know, we're better because you're helping us on the scout team. And I'll be like, wow, that when you're a 17, 18-year-old kid and you're wondering if you're good enough or not, to have your D coordinator, who was an All-American at Ohio State, who played in the NFL, come and give you that pat on the back, that was a big buoy. It was like a life preserver for me to take that fresh air, take that breath, and then go to the next thing. That my redshirt freshman year, I start getting spot duty, and you build that way. But that moment as a true freshman was so impactful that I never forget it. And I always encourage coaches that if you see that in a young player, be sure to share it with them because they need it.
I would say when it comes to the transfer portal, it depends on, because if you're a developmental player in this day and age, you're going to need those developmental players that will stick around because they're going to believe in the 4 to 5 year plan. Those guys aren't going to be showing the door. They're just going to be guys that are going to get a chance. But if you're a guy who gets surpassed, because I've seen this with multiple players from Ohio State to Bama to Georgia, where you are a good player, but you might not be good enough because you got certain people surpassing you. So that's when you get shown the door, is if they feel like you're not going to get on the field anyway. So
yeah.
That'll be the only time. And I want to say thank you, Biggie Boggs, for gifting a membership, and congratulations to Doozy for receiving it too. And then we have 2 members here. Buck Vader asks, how did winning a natty change your lives? And Burks also, I will follow up with the second question is the 2002 national championship the greatest accomplishment in your football career?
Take it, Tim.
In my football career, I would say so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's immortal. I mean, it's never going to die. I mean, we have the reunions every 10 years. Although the sad thing is, I feel like we're getting old now, so we're probably gonna have to bump those to like every 5 years. Now that we're getting up there in years, but it's like I go to a lot of the home games, being that I still live in Ohio and everything. And it's more than on one occasion while I'm sitting in the stands. I look up and I look at the 2002 on the north end of the stadium where they have the years up where teams have won it. It's something that nobody can ever take away. We're going to go down as one of the best teams in Ohio State history. We won a national championship. We've got the rings and things of that nature. And so, yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that was probably the highlight of my football career.
Yeah, it's the highest level championship that I was able to achieve. Never made it to a Super Bowl. So that, and you talk about that it changed your life forever. Yeah, you guys asked us to come do a podcast, and it's been 20 whatever years since Tim and I wore scarlet and gray. So that's going to last forever. And even living out of the state. I still have people when I'm wearing my Buckeye gear that ask about it or remember that, or the people in the 40 and over crowd. They certainly have fond memories of that national championship game, and so that's a massive part. And as far as like the achievement, that is awesome. I tell you, my ring is in a safe, and I don't bring it out. I don't wear it, and maybe that's wrong with me, but I'm just kind of the. it's bigger than that to me. That's an awesome singular moment, but to me the bigger part is, one, to be a kid from Ross County whose dad and mom and brother and sister and aunt and uncle and to be a player on the team that you absolutely idolized your entire life. Like we were raised watching old Woody videos when we were kids like that. So being a part of something like that, and then for our community, being a part of my home community, and I know Tim feels the same way. We all went through that. I was the one that got to wear the uniform, but we all, from Unioto High School and Chillicothe and that Ross County, we all went through that experience together. And then to zoom out a little more, just that chapter in history of getting things right on the Michigan rivalry, and also getting things right for the dominance that really Coach Tressel started and Urban continued, and Coach Day now continues even to this day.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, by the way, everybody on Thursday, be ready because Eric is going to be releasing another one of his little biggie box with his songs. Literally, Sean, have you seen it in the chat?
Yeah, I heard one's coming, so I don't know. So
yeah, because Eric had asked it to one of the people who've been using one of his older one of his little personas, and that's what I'm talking about. It's gonna happen on Thursday. I just figured I'd let you know.
Now, Ben, there is one question I wanted to ask you that I forgot to ask you the last time I interviewed you, and I kicked myself for it. What was it like playing with Peyton Manning?
It's one of the absolute Mount Rushmore players of NFL history. So even playing with him, and he was an established MVP caliber player when I was with the Colts, we all knew that he was special and like. So I even as a young player, I knew that I was getting to play with a Hall of Famer. We all knew, and it was his 6th or 7th year by that point, and we all knew, okay, this guy's a Hall of Famer. So that was incredible. And now that he's out of the game and he's become bigger than life as the media brand that he represents, he's the same guy. Everybody that loves him, watching him do Saturday Night Live or the Monday night games and all that stuff that he's so part of, that's who he is. That's who he was as a teammate as well. That's why I think he's so enjoyable or so highly thought of. Is the guy that you see do the bits on TV is the guy that was around the locker room as well. And that's that authenticity. There's nothing fake about him. He's the real deal. And that's, a really distinct honor to be able to be a teammate of his.
That's awesome. It's great to know that he's that genuine of a person. He's real. That's cool.
Yeah. Hey guys, I got to jump off. It's I got a hurt out here at 9, so I got to head out. I appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks for coming on, Ben. We appreciate it. You're welcome back.
Love you, man.
Buddy.
All right, buddy. Love you, buddy. We'll see it.
Yep. See you.
Ain't that awesome?
Awesome, dude. Just like Tim. I mean, not only these guys great football players, they're great people, and we enjoy getting to talk to them any chance we get. So.
Yeah, I love having a chance. I'm actually glad I got a chance to get to with Ben Hartsock. I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually happy I got the chance.
Now, Tim, can you tell us, is there a story about how you committed to Ohio State? Because Eric Boggs was telling us how Ryan committed, that he went there on a visit and they had every recruit stand up and say where they were from. And I guess like the 5 kids in front of Ryan, they all committed. And when they got to him, he's like, well, I guess I'm going to Ohio State. So is there any cool commitment stories?
No, well, I think the recruiting world was a lot different. And gosh, this is going back 1998 or so. So, I mean, we're talking 25, 27, 28 years ago. So the communication obviously wasn't like it is today. So my top 2 teams, believe it or not, was Ohio State, obviously being an Ohio kid. People think I'm crazy when I say this. My number 1 choice actually was Illinois. I loved it out there. I'd gone out there a few times on some visits. And it was super comfortable to me as a player being from a small town, because Champaign is a pretty small town. It's kind of like one of those places where the college is the town type of thing.
Gotcha.
And I felt really comfortable and really, really liked it out there. But unfortunately, they just weren't a very good football team. They had pretty poor records. They'd win a couple of games a year, 2-3 games a year. And, going through the process, my high school team, we were an average team. We'd win 4, 5, 6 games a year. We weren't really a great team either. So I think for me, it was kind of like it came down to I wanted to be on a good team. And the 1998 team, we kind of talked about them earlier, probably would have been national champions if you would have been able to do the playoff back then. But I was at a spring game, like a luncheon for recruits, and my mom and I and my dad were just sitting there. We were talking to John Cooper, and he was wearing 2 big old gold rings, and those things just kept shining. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, I want one of those. Like, I want a championship ring. And he just in conversation, he was like, we'd like you to be here. He goes, what do you think? I said, I'm in. Let's go. And we shook hands. I gave my verbal commitment, and that was it.
Was that your dream school? Sorry, TG. Was that your dream school, Tim?
I think I always wanted to play there, but I think there was always this, like Ben was saying, you grew up, you watched the teams, and, through the 90s, Ohio State was always such a great team. And I think there was always this little voice in the back of my head, being that I was from a small town, like, am I really good enough to play at that level? And I think I maybe always kind of wondered that going in, and wondered if, maybe I'd be better off at maybe a school that, wasn't pulling in the type of recruits that Ohio State was, because I don't know if I could play at that level. Ultimately, yes, they would have been my number one choice. That's where I wanted to go. That's where I wanted to play. But it was just that kind of little bit of hesitation of, am I really good enough to play there? And obviously, I'm glad I made that choice. I, had a pretty good career and enjoyed my time there. And obviously, we won the national championship, got drafted, and all that kind of stuff. And I think if I had gone anywhere else, I don't know if I would have been on the same path. I think I was fortunate to have a great D-line coach when I was there, Jim Haycock, who's since retired. But, I think if I would have had anyone else as a D-line coach, I may not have had the success that I did at the college level.
That's awesome. I'm not going to lie. Sean? So the guy, y'all RDCB, you be coming up with the funniest freaking names. Y'all need to have fun with this. Even Tyler was having fun with it. That was funny. Ryan Day's brother, I'm dead. I just want to catch this while I'm watching the chat, and I'm like,
people
really,
are crazy.
bro? just I keep doing it. I actually like this. Oh, how about you have one with Connor Stallions in there?
TG, you got anything else you want to ask Tim before we wrap it up?
No, I got nothing else. I've asked that man all the questions I could ask.
Tim, thanks again for coming on, brother. You're
My
welcome
pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
I'm glad you got to come on and do it with Ben. Maybe we'll get you back, have another round table and get a couple more people on and just have fun talking football in the middle of the season. All right, buddy.
I'd be happy to. I'd love to.
It's a pleasure, buddy.
All right,
Like
thanks, guys.
always,
Thanks for having me.
We want to thank everybody in the chat. We want to thank our producer behind the scene, our friend Vader, Eric and Chris. Thank you guys for giving us the opportunity for this platform. Everybody, all our regulars, Coconut, Troy, Crazy Ken, Steely. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry. The chat just went flying by. Bootzilla, thank you.
Burks, Crazy Ken 2020. Troy, Coconut, of course.
Everybody that watched, thanks again. Until next time, how do we always end this, TG?
Wait a minute. Coco, shut up, man. Sorry about that. My dog just keeps going crazy in the background.
I deal with it too.
Yeah. OH.
I-O.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.